Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Live. Now, as we have been reporting this morning, the 49-year-old man arrested in connection with the fire at Parliament in Cape Town is expected to appear in court tomorrow. Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Patricia de Lille says the docket regarding the fire and the arrest of the man has been handed over to the Hawks for further investigation. He faces charges of arson, housebreaking and theft after he was allegedly caught with suspected stolen property after he gained entry to the Parliament precinct in Cape Town unauthorized. The Hawks say the man will be charged under the National Key Point Act. But for more on the firefighting effort, City of Cape Town's Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security, Jean-Pierre Smith, joins us now on Zoom. Sir, good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Morning, ma'am.
JP, what do we know about the suspect that was arrested in connection with the fire? What updates do you have on your side?
No, ma'am, that matter is very much out of our hands. This is something that I think that it is best for the South African police to continue to comment on. It is difficult to imagine how somebody gains access to that precinct without authorization. The precinct is fairly secure, and that does indicate a fairly substantial breach of security. There were firefighters who also mentioned to me that when they arrived, there appeared to be some other breaches in security, but we'll take that up with the police and the parliamentary staff rather directly. And it is something I mentioned to the Provincial Commissioner, General Patricia, yesterday when he was present himself.
Let's talk about that conversation with the firefighters. What did they say to you, apart from the stuff that you can't disclose because it's over to the police? But what other issues did the firefighters raise when they arrived on the scene?
Well, as to the security matters at the moment, I think that's best not ventilated here. But what they did have to deal with is that the fire detection equipment was quite delayed in its activation. So we may have been able to gain a little bit more time if that equipment was more responsive. It could maybe have gained us an extra 20, 30 minutes and maybe nipped the fire in the bud earlier. But as it was, the equipment only activated once the staff were already on scene. So very delayed activation of the fire detection equipment. And we saw that some of that equipment had not been recently serviced, which was of some concern. Then I think that was also a concern that the electricity hadn't tripped, which means ventilators, for instance, and the aircon carried on moving, which meant hot air was being moved from the old assembly side with that portion of the building flame through to the other side of the building. And I, at this stage, don't know what role that played with propagating the fire towards the new assembly site. It may have been that we would have been able to contain the fire better. We had to manually switch off the power to that block. And so there are distinct problems in terms of the fire readiness of and safety of those premises, perhaps. And that is illustrated, I suspect, by the fact that this is the second fire in 10 months that we're dealing with there. That should not be the case. The last one was electrical, and we'll wait to see what the outcome is of the arrest of the person in question. But if it ends up, whatever the situation ends up there, I suspect we may also have to look at the electrical issues. This is not this is an old building, and maintenance always becomes an issue over time.
And yesterday you was talking about how you had to break the doors of the old chamber to gain access. What was the last decision regarding that?
So I think that those artifacts are quite precious, and I don't think any of the firefighters wanted to do any more damage than they had to already. In the entrance foyer to those premises, the doors had to be batched down with access and otherwise. So there was damage there as the firefighters struggled to get in. The internal security mechanisms within the building prevented movement through the building around the gymnasium and otherwise, which made it difficult for the firefighters to get to all the parts of the fire. But nobody, I think, attempted to break into the old assembly building. Didn't want to do that additional damage, and there didn't appear to be any fire emanating from there. although certainly the floors above it were well gutted. So I suspect there may be some water damage, and I hope just that damage isn't too significant, if there is any, because, I mean, those are priceless artifacts, the buildings and the wood in there. It's hard to replace. As it is, the damages to the parliamentary, to those other parliamentary buildings will run into the hundreds of millions and will require some very delicate restoration.
Mm-hmm. What update have you received from last night till now from the firefighters or people that you are working with?
So they've scaled down. Yesterday we had, at the height of it, 12 appliances at the new assembly side, and numerous breathing staff issued with breathing apparatus, because it was extremely smoke clogged the building because of the reinforced nature of those windows, and so the smoke and the heat was very much contained inside the building. That may have saved some portions of the building from the fire spreading, in that the windows, when the windows didn't break in some areas, that denied the fire the oxygen to move into other sections. It's probably why some parts of the second floor of the new assembly building is still intact. But we've scaled down to about 25 fighters who are just damping down, and people from the outside are reporting that they've seen intermittent bits of smoke. And that is probably the firefighters finding bits that are still hot and dampening it down, making sure that there's no recurrence of the fire, but that fire now under control.
Mm-hmm. And as the city of Cape Town, where to from here? What is your role going forward?
We had two very capable and able fire safety inspectors in that building in the fires yesterday, aside from all the platoon commanders and the incident commander. Some extremely capable people who really know their business. They will be drawing up a report. I had a conversation with the chief fire officer last night. They are drawing up a report, and in that report, they will give us their best indication as to the cause of fire afterwards. We will then immediately share that information with the relevant authorities. Yesterday, our staff were working with the crime scene investigators from SAT, and they even went up in the one hydraulic platform to be able to observe the two areas of fire, because it felt strange that the fire had existed in two sides of the precinct with an area in the middle that was not damaged. But we have some ideas as to how that may have happened.
Mm. What do you hope then happens if you find that there were cracks in whatever, that no safety protocols were followed and the equipment was not serviced? What do you hope then happens going forward?
Well, hopefully these assets, I mean, this building is the heart of our the foundation of our democratic institution. A building like this should be secure and safe. So hopefully urgent remedial steps are taken to enhance the fire safety. 2 fires in 10 months is not good news. It certainly becomes a matter of public interest, and it's certainly a single fire is maybe a chance incident, a rare, a specific occurrence that can happen anywhere. But when fires become repeated problems such as this, then you have to start wondering as to the requisite maintenance, the extent to which that's been reasonably and effectively done, and the maintenance of those fire systems. So hopefully there'll be a crackdown on that and an improved safety situation, because this is going to cost the taxpayer quite a lot of money. However this started, and it did appear to start in the offices, as I said in the interview that you played, adjacent to the gym, which effectively I think were is party offices. It did start there and spread, and so it does need to be looked at how that was possible and what the cause of that may have been.
Mm. Any indication of how long it's going to take before you receive the report?
We've asked for the fire chief please to get the staff to expedite that. Our mayoral also asked for that yesterday. So we've asked him to please get that report to us urgently. So hopefully today they will be able to conclude their comments and pass it on. It will be preliminary in nature. Also considering that we will then be handing the site over or removing ourselves from that site today And then the South African Police's crime scene investigations and otherwise will need to take the lead on this matter. But such information as we gleaned yesterday, we will commit to writing and hand over to the relevant authorities. And if there is relevant public interest in the matter, we will convey that as well.
All right. Cape Town's Mayoral Committee Member for Safety and Security, Jean-Pierre Smith, sir, thank you so much for giving us an update regarding the large fire that severely damaged the Houses of Parliament in Cape Town yesterday. All right, let's take a quick ad break. Azu's back with your weather after this. Stay with us.